The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forest that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn in Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are having our monthly round table, where we are going to take a few questions and put them out there of various topics and pick them apart. Tonight on our panel we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist. Hopefully we'll be able to get our Keith Andrews in, who's our astrologist and alien specialist, but we're having some Skype issues tonight, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We also have Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, myself, Corey Reese, and your host, Forest Moon Paranormal's own, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, how you doing, everyone? Coming to you live from Corey's living room. Woo! Yeah, so we're actually coming live from the studio, which is a drastic change because there's, if I get disconnected, that is go, hey, yo, Corey, reconnect me. So, yeah, so we had our business meeting today, and it went great. We missed the UFOI team, but they'll be up for a investigation on the 5th of May, along with Markham's birthday. Oh, my gosh, we're having one hell of a barbecue on the 4th. So tonight, we are doing the round table. Going to be a blast, as always is. And Kevin is saying Corey sounds like a heavy smoker. I'm sorry, but you know what? I've never seen Corey pick up a cigarette or anything else for that matter. So how's everyone doing tonight?
We're doing great.
So far, so good.
Outstanding. And you got some excellent sleep, so I know you're ready to go, ain't you, Michael?
Yeah, I got my Saturday afternoon nap, so I'm ready to go.
Good deal. Where you at, Markham?
Right here,
Unmute
having
the
my
mic.
usual cursed Saturday. I hate Saturdays with the chemistry analyzer.
I'm about to say it must be them. Yeah. All right. So who wants to go first? You know what? I'm going to throw out my one question I know I have in my head, and I wish Keith was here for that. I really do, because this is right up Keith's alley. But I got a message from one of our FMP members in the UK. And this message, this member said that, what's going on? And this is last week. So she says, what's going on? Is there an alien invasion coming or what? And I asked her, explain, and apparently her kid came home from school and was traumatized and terrified because the school told this child that there was an alien invasion, it's the end of the world, and who does that to a kid? And this didn't come from kids, this came from the teacher. I understand kids being cruel and all, but this came from a teacher. That the aliens are here, they're going to invade, and yada, yada, yada. So, have you guys heard about this big imminent invasion that's already come and gone?
Damn, does that mean I'll have to make my car payment this month?
Well, and on the serious note, there's people selling their, just like last year with the whole Nibiru scare, there's people quitting their jobs, selling their houses because, oh my God, the aliens are going to come in and take us away. I wish they would, but seriously.
Well, that is a strange phenomenon, if indeed it's coming from the school district or something. It could come just from a teacher who's like, reading the news or something and kind of interpreting it. But, it could be, for instance, what if it's a PSYOPs drill that they're picking certain schools to kind of throw it out there against the wall and see if it sticks, kind of in conjunction with the ATIP program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification program there with Luis Elizondo. Obviously they need to create a fear regarding that whole idea of an alien invasion, and that's what Werner von Braun mentioned to Carol Rosen was going to be the last false flag. So it's kind of interesting that you say that, Eric, because I hadn't heard that myself, but it sure would make sense if they're out there kind of like, fueling the flames.
But Michael, I expect that in America. I expect that kind of reaction in the United States, not the UK. I mean, I understand the UK really has just as much, UFO interaction as we do. But coming from the UK, and I asked her for documentation, she actually did send me some links, and I'll forward them on to you. And maybe you can send them off to Peter and see what he has to say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it is kind of interesting that it's coming from the UK. Of course, a lot of people would say that, that is the root of the Illuminati control anyway, coming out from England and the UK and London. So I'm wondering, and plus there's always been that rumor out there recently that Putin was going to be the guy who actually led disclosure and was going to actually kind of spill the beans here. I've heard that just even last week that at one point he was going to be the guy to kind of throw that against the wall and see if it sticks. So who knows? It could be the United States doesn't want to make the initial lead on this whole idea of full disclosure, and then of course they would follow up with a spin shortly thereafter, I'm sure.
Now, here's the interesting part, and it's interesting that you happen to bring up Putin. That's it's actually Russia that the Alien Races book came from. And the Alien Races book was actually documentation from KGB and intelligence agencies in Russia. It was translated from Russian into English and then offered for free online. But that's actually where the Alien Races book came from, was Russia. So to me, it makes perfect sense to have Putin bring it in.
Yeah.
Not to mention, Russia had their own Roswell variation in about the same time.
Oh, of course. And, of course, Russia has the Caucasus Mountains. A lot of legends about, the origins of man kind of showing up and or extraterrestrials showing down, coming to that area of the world for some reason. I think it's fascinating that we are living right now in a time in history that could just not be any better. If you were sitting up in heaven and wanted to be born on earth and you decided which time to pick, this would have been the choice time to pick it, because things are happening so fast on this planet that it's fascinating to live through all of these, what I call soft disclosure at this point. But at one point, the existence of extraterrestrials on this planet is going to be a moot point.
But don't you think this would be, I consider soft disclosure more movies, more Close Encounters of a Third Kind, and things of that nature. Wouldn't this be more of a step up?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm wondering if, for instance, another country like the UK or Russia have been prompted to take the lead on something like that, because obviously, our guys here in this country, in the United States, have been reluctant to make the big D disclosure, and they've opted for this kind of, like you said, soft disclosure with the media and the entertainment industry. Even the Tom DeLonge thing seems to be more of an entertainment kind of a program in itself, along with the idea of a advanced aerospace threat that they can get the military involved with, so they can obviously continue their budgeting. But I'm wondering if that is the strategy, that the U.S. doesn't take the lead, but follows up on the spin throughout this whole thing. That's going to be fascinating to see.
I agree. And let's hear your first question, Michael.
Well, I had a question for you, Eric, on this new idea that today you even said that you met with a production company, video production company, that was going to do a documentary on Forest Moon Paranormal. I sure would like to hear more about that.
Okay. So that's actually, they wanted to hear more about what we do, and they came to our meeting today. They wanted to hear more about what we do on the emergency management side of the paranormal. And so we had a good hour-long discussion about that, and come to find out, one of the guys, there's three of them in this production company, and so eventually they do want to do a documentary. They want to figure out where they're going to take it and how they're going to approach it. But right now, they're actually in the marketing side of it. They want to market, send out FMP to various market sides that he works with. So we're in phase one. Yeah, we're in phase one of that part of it. Now, since you bring that up, so we have like you suggested at our last training meeting, we have our press packet in works. We just need bios and pictures from our lead team members. And May 7th here in our community, we actually have all the community leaders coming together of the county for a public public forum. So I like to have these press packets complete, finished up, and done. So when I go to that meeting and bring up various community issues, not paranormal, I can actually approach them with a press packet as well and say, look, we are a paranormal emergency response team. We are here to help you with paranormal issues. And at the same time, I'm finished with my associates next week. I have a week-long break before I start my bachelor's in Homeland Security. And so I'm going to take that week break and work on a training program to actually take to law enforcement and show them, okay, you walk into a domestic violence issue and you start seeing shadows, you start seeing this, you start seeing that. These are signs of paranormal. That's when you call us in, right. and things of that nature.
And it's a great resource, obviously, for first responders, law enforcement, those kinds of folks who actually get the domestic violence complaint or whatever kind of issue that they're showing up at. And of course, it's out of their league when the actual victims start talking about paranormal issues. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle that. So you guys are going to be a resource for them. That's going to be wonderful.
And that's the key. And I mean, then you go into the alien abduction side where you're describing, EMS goes into, you call the ambulance for some unusual signs on a victim. And EMS is going, what are those scoop mark looking things? Or, things of that nature. And what's that bump in your skin? It looks like a little metal object on your skin. Wait, what is that? If they know what the signs and symptoms of alien abduction are, and they aren't a medical problem, they'll go, that light bulb will go off, and they'll go, oh, well, this might be something FMP needs to look at. What are fire departments going to, gain from this? I haven't really put a finger on yet, but, there's something paranormal in more cases than not. So,
yeah. Well, I can see the fire departments getting involved with any kind of suspicious arson that might even be connected to poltergeist phenomena. Something like
That's
that.
True.
Obviously, they move objects. They slam doors. They knock things over. So you never know in what respect. If there was a smart investigator in the fire departments and they've ruled out every other aspect that they can think of why this fire started, it might be something that they could actually call you guys in even after the fact with your sensitive equipments and be able to determine if there's anything there that could be residual effect.
True. See, and that's where we pull our brains together and we come up, because I was kind of at a loss of where a fire department, but yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And then you got, emergency management itself, Department of Emergency Management. There's areas that they work more in the mountain areas, the earthquakes, the disasters, where you got Bigfoot, you've got UFO activity if they're out in the woods or whatever. So there's all kinds of areas that we could, like you said, be a resource for them.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it's a lot of gumshoe leather to the ground and hard work to actually to get the phone numbers out there and the contact out there for the Forest Moon Paranormal. My old client Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center, he literally got his hotline phone number in every sheriff's department, every city police department, and all the FAA towers and every airport that he could think of, just to be a resource. And actually, it ended up took a few years, obviously, to get hooked, caught on to. but all of a sudden people were referring not only to the National UFO Reporting Center, but other area law enforcement officers were asking other law enforcement officers where to send UFO sighting reports, and that's how the kind of buzz started happening. So Forest Moon Paranormal is well on the way to doing that, and I think that's going to be a key for you guys to be a resource down the road.
Ideally, and then you look at the state government, but local government's the first step.
Yep.
Now, we've caught the attention of one of the MUFON state directors in the South, and I will be on his show on Tuesday night. So we're actually stepping out and getting even broader resources ourselves. So that's a good thing. And I'm learning real quick that, every state MUFON runs differently. It's not, you can't look at MUFON's faults and blame MUFON itself, because every state runs by itself and runs its own way.
Yeah, that's right. Maureen Morgan would say the same thing here in the state of Washington, that they have certain guidelines, but they basically run their own ship. Right.
Yeah, I'd like to meet her actually. Start getting linked up with the Washington State MUFON, and maybe help them out. Maybe help them out on the abduction side.
Yes, you'd definitely be another. They have actually a emergency response team of their own, in MUFON. It's called the ERT team, and she definitely would need to coordinate with you folks in what you do, because they are first responders to people who are out there that claim to have witnessed close encounters with alien beings. If it doesn't turn out to be that way, you guys would be the other paranormal arm of that entire ERT team, the emergency response idea.
Sounds good. Sounds great. So, Corey, what's your first question?
Yeah. I don't really have a question, really.
Half right.
It's been a busy day.
It has. And yeah, for our listeners that don't understand what half right is, we've been watching Army Drill Sergeant videos for the last 3 hours. It has been awesome. Brings back good memories. Half right. Yeah. Okay, we'll let you think about that. Markham, you got a first question?
Well, a lot of times we talk about disclosure and communicating with the aliens and all this, and we sort of have this. I wish it was here.
I know.
But could it be possible that they are reaching out to us, and we're just not recognizing it?
That's exactly what Grant Cameron is saying, in the fact that he believes that everything is consciousness, and that we are getting people are getting downloads all the time. Matter of fact, he's written a couple of books on the history of creativity in human beings, and sometimes the major developments or inventions that people have created were attributed to not their own brain power, but something else that just gave them the idea. They woke up in the middle of the night with something, outrageous and forward thinking, and so they just acted upon that. So who knows whether that is the way the extraterrestrials are actually reaching out to us. And it seems to me that the veil is getting thinner and thinner lately as far as communication goes.
Well, I also noticed that it seems like the the way humans interact with animals. I mean, broad spectrum, other mammals, creatures. Anyway, it seems that, in just the last, say, 40 years, when I was in 6th grade, I got into it with my teacher because I thought that cats showed intelligence. Because we had an old cat. My mom had this cat before I was born, and this cat would bring three of something. It might be a mole, a chipmunk, and a mouse, or anyhow, he left three things on the front porch. And that's the thing cats provide. Feel like they're providing. They'll leave you presents but he left one for each of us. So that means he knew, and this cat could figure that there was 3 people that he was gifting. Okay. Well, I was told, no, that's just instinct or some BS like that, and I wouldn't let it go and ended up getting paddled in the hall. But, that was like every day pretty much. But now you get these interactions, and I mean, you see them on YouTube, and you see them all over the place where somebody or something interacts with an animal, and it's not a instinct-driven, or there's obviously an exchange of emotion and an exchange of thought going on between this so-called wild animal and this human. Could that be part of it? It's the boundaries between the species is starting. Either we're getting more enlightened, or they are. Probably them. They're probably dragging us back. Well, if you look at the Indian lore, Native American, and go back, humans and animals used to talk to each other. Then we started being the buttholes, and the animals were like, screw you. Could it be that some agency is trying to bring us back into the fold, so to speak?
Yeah, exactly. And, the whole idea that if indeed everything is consciousness, not only animals, by the way, but plants, but anything with, even minerals, let's put it that way, have vibrational, supposedly consciousness themselves. So if everything is tied together with some kind of a non-locality communication system, all we need to do is figure out how we can still our minds and our thoughts a bit to tune into that. And of course, that's what Native Americans used to do. I mean, they didn't have any distractions. They were there in the wilderness, making a living and being at one with nature. And like you said, they would actually hear communication from the wind, from the earth, and their intuition seemed to be a lot stronger than. Matter of fact, I have heard this one theory that was very interesting. In the fact it was a military U.S. Army study when they had the code talkers that were working with the Second World War, trying to the Navajo, exactly.
Yeah.
What they did is they found out that if they cut the hair of the Indians short, just like the military haircuts and stuff, a lot of their intuitive powers failed. And they basically went to the whole idea that their hair, through generations and eons, supposedly gave them some kind of more intuitive ability when it was longer. I thought that was fascinating in itself.
That must be why Dave's getting smarter. He's letting his hair grow.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I've heard the same thing. If you think about it, look at the story of Samson in the Bible. They cut his hair and he lost the power. You know, you talk to Native Americans, you can go back to religious text. You know, with the story of Samson, and they cut his hair and he lost his power.
Yes, and of course, you know, in East India and in various countries there, I mean, long hair for men is the norm. You would not even think of cutting your hair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at the Sikhs. They wear their hair tucked up under their turbans because they don't cut their hair.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and look
there's a lot of spiritual people like that. Yeah, it's.
But you know what's bad about the what's bad about the Rastafarians is they also put crap in their hair. So I don't know where that comes from or comes in. You know, I cut my hair.
Keeps the flies out of their food.
Yeah, there you go. I cut my hair and it doesn't grow back now, so I'm just kind of screwed. Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
Something to think about too is, you know, you talk about animals and humans acting more like they have communication stuff. You know, one of the things we forget about is that we're supposed to have a neural net here on this planet where basically everything is connected together. It means animals, humans, rocks, everything. And from what I understand, you know, from talking to R. Keith many times, it's one of the things that some of the aliens covet.
Interesting.
But you know what's cool? Talking about aliens with hair. You know, the movie Battleship portrayed the aliens with beards.
Interesting. I have not seen that. Tell me about it.
Seriously?
I bet that was a reference to the Anunnaki, because the Anunnaki, you know, they're all drawn with those huge Babylonian beards.
You're right.
Stylized beards. And then if you look at the Lamassu statues, all of those have beards. You know, beards were a symbol of power. So it was sort of a neat throwback.
No, I think, yeah, and Battleship was actually the first alien invasion movie where they actually portray alien races that have infantry and, I mean, worker bees, not just, you know, let's just go down and blast the earth and yada yada. They actually had, you know, infantry. And to me, very accurately portrayed. You got to watch that one.
Definitely.
I have not seen that one.
I'm writing it down right now.
Not to mention, it's a great Battleship movie.
All right.
Those are the most beautiful ships you will ever see. I had the
aren't they?
Proof. I saw the Jersey back when she was still commissioned. I don't remember why the Nimitz wasn't in its usual spot. The Nimitz was out. I was on temporary assigned duty. The Nimitz was out, and the word came in that the Jersey was in. No, that's what it was. We were over in dry dock, and the Jersey was at Pier 12 where we usually tied up. And I went over and saw that, and it was jaw-dropping. The Nimitz was just an ugly gray slab that sat on the water. Just absolutely utilitarian, ugly piece of crap. The Jersey was just, to me, it was indescribably beautiful as a piece of nautical engineering. Just, oh my God.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. I just hollered to Corey across the room and asked him if he's ready for his question. He said, yeah.
A little different all being in the same room. It's kind of a trip, actually. So my question to kind of start things off is, you know, what has happened with all of the recent big names that have been in the media that just kind of seem to have faded away? You know, you've had Alessandro and all these other names that were real big, you know, all of a sudden, and then now you don't hear much of anything about them. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I have some thoughts on that. The idea of throwing something out there and then letting it settle for a while, or even pulling it back, is a strategy that's been going on for well over 70 years, ever since Roswell, of course, and probably before then. The idea being that, the very next day after the crash in Roswell, July 8th of 1947, there was this massive article in the local newspaper that got picked up across the nation and around the world that the Army had captured a flying saucer, flying disc. Now, obviously, that press release had to be okayed by someone higher up. The idea that something like that was actually taken to the local newspaper by the press officer on the base there, that was something that was planned ahead of time. And then, of course, immediately thereafter, they pull the story back and say, well, it wasn't really a flying disc. It was, radar array. But that just kind of started the whole process of throwing something against the wall, seeing if it sticks or not, and either letting things lay low for a while or pulling it back, obviously, even right after it happens, with the idea being that they don't really care if the information sticks or not, but the fact that it's now in the public psyche, the people hear about these ideas being potentially relevant and true, even though they might be debunked later. It's almost like a slow red pilling process that if you were a PSYOPs program coordinator, these are the kinds of things that you would do consistently over time to prepare people and or use them in some kind of a social engineering project.
Makes sense to me. But have you noticed too that the bigger media sources are now also coming out with more UFO reports?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just remarkable. I mean, I didn't even consider that in my lifetime I would see an article on the front page of the New York Times confirming the existence of extraterrestrial, unidentified aerial phenomena. I mean, that is just amazing to me to be able to say that that happened during my lifetime. But of course, as soon as that happened.
But let me ask you this, Michael, where do you think the shift happened? What was the change?
Well, that goes to the bottom line there, Eric, and I believe that there is some kind of pressure being put on the powers that be to hurry up this process of getting the public ready for some kind of amazing reality that's coming very swiftly down the road. For some reason, as you can tell, with all of these things that are going on now, with soft disclosure, a little bit of hard disclosure here and there, with gun camera footage, all sorts of things coming out from the military and the Department of Defense, there has been some kind of push to get this information out there and get people used to hearing about this subject. And I believe that it's a possibility that there has been some off-world pressure that has said, "Hey, it's been long enough that the people of this planet have been subdued and kept down as far as their consciousness and their knowledge of the real true facts, and that now is the time. I think someone has been given the edict that either you do this or we're going to do it. And of course, the powers that be on the planet, they don't want to let go of the spin. They want to control the spin, and so that they are trying their own way to handle the idea of red pilling the public and making sure that they're on top of things so they can tell the story their way.
And that makes sense. And
yeah, I've been saying that for about a year now. That the disclosure is coming whether the governments want it to or not. That all this soft disclosure is just the last desperate gasp of a control structure that knows it's about to become obsolete or to be usurped.
But that kind of brings into my second question too. Because it came up today. The reason these guys found out about FMP was actually somebody that saw us posted somewhere and said, "Hey, check these dorks out." And this guy we met today said, "Dorks? Actually, I'm into the paranormal." Now that kind of leads, the perception and attitude of society today still is, you say paranormal, they kind of scoff and roll their eyes and say, "You're a Ghostbuster." When is that going to change? And do you think this self-disclosure is going to help that, or kind of like an earthquake? You have two plates that are colliding or going over each other. What do you think?
Well, I think this confirmed soft disclosure from the federal government is indeed opening up the floodgates for people to report paranormal and talk about the paranormal activities in their own lives. Matter of fact, the UFOI team has been inundated with people now wanting to tell us their story. Ever since the New York Times articles came out, there was an article followed up from there in New York Magazine. And of course, all the other medias now are actually not doing the snicker stories, about UFOs. They're actually talking about them in a serious vein. And so people are saying, hey, I don't have to worry about the stigma that used to be there when I are talking about this whole idea. Matter of fact, as a lawyer, there's a whole idea of employment law defense that if someone gets fired because of their interest in the paranormal, I mean, that's an actionable, process right there. If they are kicked out for of employment with no, no HR problems that they had just because they're talking about or at least even thinking about the paranormal. So I think more and more people are feeling a lot easier nowadays to talk about the subject. And we sure have seen that in the area of UFOs because people say, well, hey, I told you so. The New York Times is talking about it, and I happen to see one myself. So
do you still think it's going to cause panic?
Well, here's an interesting process and problem that I can see that's coming down the road. It's called blowback. That's my term for the possibility that when actual disclosure happens, and it's a moot point whether aliens exist and whether they are visiting the Earth, all of a sudden people are going to start putting two and two together. They're going to say, hey, if these folks can get here from hundreds of millions of light years away, they must have some advanced technology. And you're telling us, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but if you're telling us that if they are here on our planet and they have advanced technology and you've known it since 1947 or thereabouts, why haven't we as the public been benefiting from this advanced technology. Energy-wise, potentially medical, reasons that or medical advances that my Aunt Betty wouldn't have had to die of cancer because this, whole idea is crazy, and we've had the answers to this for generations. I believe the blowback there could be astronomical, and I believe they know that. And for some reason, they need to control the spin on that so they can still keep control once this disclosure happens.
Well, you got the people that are going to look at it saying, okay, the Challenger disaster didn't have to happen. We didn't have we didn't have to lose the crew of the Apollo 1. We didn't have to, the Challenger, the Columbia. There's a laundry list of we didn't have tos that are going to come out of all of this. The cancer deaths, and granted, we need to have someplace else to go, and I think as a species we're going to have to evolve and be more enlightened and more enlightened and universal beings than the viruses we tend to be. We overpopulate, we overuse. It's by and large, human species is hard on their environment. I mean, we got to live, but like just here in my area, my God, it's like the Tolkien described the maggot folk of Mordor because they're always tearing stuff up and eating into. That's what's happening around me. I see strips of forest that are being destroyed for no better reason than to put a commercial property available. There's been a couple places that had old growth timber on them, or at least second generation timber on them that have been cleared out that still have commercial property. They've been empty for 3 years and it's starting to grow back up.
But you have fracking in the area as well, don't you?
I am not sure. Not in my area. They might on the coast.
Because what's bad about fracking? They're putting, I believe it's cyanide in the earth, which is causing earthquakes in places that don't have earthquakes.
I'm up in the air about fracking because in one way they're displacing the petrochemical, but the water is there. I don't know. That's one of those that is so politically charged, and both sides are so diametrically opposed that it's hard to study and it's hard to research. I mean, Joe Monk is probably the only one that I know of that would be qualified to comment on how fracking works because he's a geologist. He's got a background in geology. In fact, he's got a background in the oil industry. So there's,
I'm learning about fracking in my environmental science. But again, like you said, basically what you learn in college is based on the writer of the textbook and what their view is. So it could still go, one way or the other. It's a very save the earth type class. So
it's like if I take my college textbook in history and compare it, and that was from 1991, my first semester in history. I take that textbook and compare it to one that the kids are using now. It's like comparing a treatise on Einstein's theory of general relativity to a friggin' comic book. I read it and I don't recognize the history. I got a master's in history and I'm reading this and it's like, what the are they trying to, it's like 1984. They're rewriting history. And people with no history have no future, folks. That's just It's the way it works. If you have no history, you have no foundation, you have no future.
Good point.
I want to kind of go back here to a point that was made earlier about the possibility of if extraterrestrials were here and the advances that they had not being used for the benefit or benefiting from the technology. And I saw Joe Monk in the chat room had posted up a comment that actually was slightly apropos to that. It says, "I'm holding a small phone in my hand that has access to the entire knowledge of the human race. Who says we haven't benefited from that technology?" And it makes me think for a second that, there is some aspects of it, I think, that we have. As I've said before, humans are definitely not stupid. We're very ingenuitive. We're very good at creating things. But you have to look at some of the technology that we have and think that, I don't think without some other outside influence that we would have things that were quite advanced quite so far and quite so quickly. So I think he has just a little bit of a point there.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that is, if you just look, here's a great example of that, Corey. The Wright brothers in 1903 got the idea that they think they can create from their bicycle parts an actual airplane that they could fly, sit in, and leave the bounds of the earth, even for a short period of time. That is not that far back. That is 1903. And look where we are now with just a short period of time, probably even before that short period of time, they had the technology to get off world and those kinds of places. But there's no way we could have created, I believe, that advanced technology in such a short period of time without, help from some kind of outside source. Matter of fact, Francis Crick, the famous scientist who came up with or helped come up with the idea of DNA himself, he says that he was given the idea or the groundbreaking issues at the time when he was trying to figure this out came from a raccoon that he saw at his cabin. It was a giant raccoon, but it was a raccoon. And a lot of other scientists have said that they woke up in the middle of the night with an idea that came to them in a dream. So if those aren't downloads, I don't know what they are. But
like Tesla.
Obviously, yeah, there you go.
I mean, Tesla, the whole concept of the AC generator came to him fully. I mean, it was like, boom, here you go. And that wasn't the only thing that came to him like that.
Yes,
some of our technology is a natural evolution. Like people talk about, the aliens gave us transistors. No, it's just somebody figured out a way of using a different material, because from the get-go, tubes or valves had a problem: heat and fragility. I mean, I have a tube guitar amp, and you treat that thing like a newborn baby if you're moving it, and you don't jostle it if you're playing it. So there were people already working on how to get a solid state device that would do what a tube did. And when I was in basic electricity and electronics school, we learned tubes, because there was still some gear out there in the Navy that had tubes in it, amplifiers. And we also learned the solid state, and even what the parts were called, the collector, base, and emitter. It was the same terminology used from one to the other. And you could see how that was a natural progression. And things like fiber optics, it's not that much of a stretch. There's some natural things that could have inspired that. But I don't disagree that there are some things in our history that just, it's like, who was the first person that decided that you could combine grab this dirt, melt it down, and here's, copper, steel, or, iron, bronze, whatever, tin. Who figured out that tin could be mixed with, tin and brass to make bronze or something like, you've got these leaps. And I don't know enough about metallurgy, but it just seems like, how in the heck would you figure that out?
Yes, exactly.
That's beyond the heat of the average campfire. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost it's almost like the 100th monkey effect. All of a sudden, at one point, the information or the experience kind of reaches to a peak where all of a sudden, wow, the actual experiment happens and spreads so quickly once it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will grant humans this. If you point them in the right direction, you don't have to spoon feed us as a species. If you just give us a peek into something, our minds will take it and run with it. So it's like, okay, what's it take to make, aim these people down this way? Well, let's just give them a peek here. And then, boom, next thing you know, we've got cars, airplanes, crap like that, technology.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I've experienced this myself. I'm sure everyone has, where you might be driving in a car, you might be doing some kind of a motor skill where your brain kind of gets into a zone, and thoughts come to you that are kind of revolutionary thoughts that kind of prompt you to do something else or something further. Maybe a problem you've been trying to work on is solved when you were least expecting it. That is a human experience, I think, that shows what you're talking about, Markham.
All right, guys, we're up to our first, the only break, top of the hour. So, Corey, take us into the break.
Okay, we can do that. When we come back from break, we are going to continue our monthly roundtable. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, and we have Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, myself, Corey Reese, and Eric Cooper of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And for you local listeners, you can now catch our shows on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial on Saturdays from 10 p.m. to midnight. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Mondays through Friday, Spaced Out Weekend with Joe Roop on Saturdays, and Best of SOR on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or SpacedOutRadio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit spacedoutradio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you just joining us tonight, we are having our monthly roundtable. On our panel tonight, we have Eric Markham and Michael Hall. Welcome back, everyone.
Where you at, Michael? We didn't lose Michael, did we?
I don't believe so, no.
Maybe he's getting a drink, too. So, where were we? Oh. Corey, you got another question?
No, I don't actually have anything ready here quite yet. I've been working on some stuff here, so.
Oh, I had a part two with Michael's question, actually. So, with the state of our government and all the division of the people, do you think with the government coming out and doing disclosure, people would believe it anyway?
Well, that's a good question because a lot of people were not believing the New York Times articles. And some of of course, there was a lot of blowback from the ufology community, the paranormal community in general, when, this disclosure was coming from counterintelligence officers in the Pentagon. Let's put it that way. So
right.
People are actually just disclosing have some credibility issues right there.
So do you think Tom DeLonge was a hindrance?
I think Tom DeLonge was an opportunity for the powers that be. I think he was genuinely and still is genuinely interested in this topic and probably has been most of his life. He spent his own money to go around and get these appointments with these high-ranking individuals in the government and the military, and the intelligence community folks. And I think they saw him as an opportunity to use him as a relatively young guy in this field to probably affect the upcoming generations more readily than the standard folk that were doing this for generations.
Mm-hmm. Because we were talking about that with this production company guy today. The fact that because he brought up Greer, and
yeah,
Greer had good intentions in the beginning. What I don't like about Greer is the way he made aliens a religion. That all aliens are wonderful. There's no bad aliens. Yada yada yada. Then on the flip side of that, you got along with, all aliens are evil. We got to shoot them all down. Don't ask questions. Just shoot them down. There's no middle ground with any of them. Maybe with Grant Cameron as a middle ground.
Well, Grant Cameron uses those exact two examples right there of Dr. Stephen Greer and Tom DeLonge in his book called Managing Magic, where he says that the government and the powers that be promote what he calls messiahs, various messiahs out there who come forth and tell a story and have a theory and almost develop a religion, like you mentioned. But they do it from different angles. All aliens are good. All aliens are bad. They promote both sides of the same argument, and basically for the idea that it's slowly but surely getting the whole idea out there into the public's psyche for whatever spin they want to use it for in the future. And, obviously right now they're going for this alien threat idea, and that's why we need to spend a lot more money in a militarized space.
Yeah, and if you notice, it's always a Republican, and I'm not bringing politics into this, but it is always the Republicans who want to throw money into war. And let's look at the aliens, using Tom DeLonge as all the aliens are bad, to, fund that program.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating. That book by Grant Cameron is a great book because he says that for the last 70 years they've been doing this, funding different sides of the same argument, just to kind of confuse the public, psyops programs, to make sure that they are still in control of the narrative as it gets slowly but surely pushed out there.
So let's bring the media back into it, because the media is showing UFO sightings, but they're staying neutral and not saying anything about good or bad. Do you think there's a reason for that?
Yeah, actually, of course, the media, if you talk about Project Mockingbird and all those kinds of things, are totally controlled by the Black Ops military and industrial complex anyway. I mean, they have agents throughout the entire media that will be able to kind of follow the agenda that they've outlined, from the top down. So right now they're in the process of just kind of getting the ideas out there. They're not coming across with conclusions of what these are, where they come from, and that kind of thing. But from what I hear, with characters like Jim Semivan from the CIA, who ran the Weird Desk at the CIA for many, many years, like over 20 years, those guys are actually now in the process of either retiring or getting involved with companies like Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, with the idea that they need to come out now and kind of start getting the truth known. And Jim Semivan, for instance, is supposedly an experiencer himself, has actually had contact with aliens. So that's kind of interesting, coming from a career CIA man.
Right. And where's my train of thought here? So with the media, do you think they're going to have the media take one side or the other? Or do you think they're filling the waters out?
I think they probably are being forced to rust this agenda. So I think what we're going to find here in the very near future, even though there seems to be a lull right now in the pushing of the agenda, but I think very shortly there will be an agenda being pushed one way or the other. If Wernher von Braun is correct, it will be that the aliens are a threat, and this is going to be used as a potential false flag event, Project Bluebeam or whatever you want to call it, and it will be used to consolidate control. Basically, I mean, if people believe that they're in fear of their lives because of an alien presence or an attack on this planet, they're going to turn to the government very quickly and give them whatever control they need to try to fix the problem. So that will be interesting to see if and when that agenda starts looming his head up.
Well,
so
if you look at whenever,
go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking when you see an advanced culture, this is one of the things that Stephen Hawking came out with. Maybe we shouldn't be sending signals into space and advertising our location because because whenever a more advanced civilization encounters a less advanced civilization, think of the people that Columbus encountered. Things do not go well for the discoveree. Those that are discovered, or the lower people on the rung. It's very so. Ask my people that got marched to death from North Carolina to the butthole of Oklahoma. It just doesn't end well, and that's something. Unless these people these aliens are so enlightened that they know how to do it. But
and maybe the prime directive does exist. Who knows? Maybe that's why they haven't done it so far. But I think you've just coined a new popular term there, Markham. Discoveries. Instead of abductees, I'm a discoveree, man.
And guess what I discovered? I just, I mean, look at our own science fiction, and pretty much anything you can imagine. The universe is a big place. Anything you can imagine, any scenario you can imagine, anything you can imagine probably exists out there. So that means there's Klingons, there's Narsika, maybe not by that name, but that kind of being is out there. Hey, we're here for the the booze, the resources, and the women. If you don't like it, we're going to grind you under our heels. We don't care if you like it or not. We're going to grind you under our heels anyway. The Genghis Khans of space. So that's not all going to be, unicorn farts and angels singing. I mean, it's just not. I don't think it's going to end well.
You're just coining terms right and left here.
Now, on that note, or on that topic, we're into almost the 5th month of the year, and so much has happened in 5 months. Where do you think we're going to be by December?
Subjugated by our alien masters. But seriously, I think within the year, I think by that time, it might not be a full disclosure, but I think disclosure is going to be at such a point that there's not going to be much more left to the imagination. We're almost there now.
We're almost there now with Trump's Space Force. I mean, and everybody, you could bring that up to anybody, just Mr. Smith over around the corner, and everybody heard that comment. Even the ones that don't like Trump have heard that comment. Everybody heard it. And, that didn't leave much to the imagination. You got the random person that goes, yeah, we're going to create a Space Force that's going to shoot down meteors. No. Most people know exactly what he was referring to, and that's off-rulers.
Well, to play devil's advocate, though, and I'm not going to give him more credit than is due, but at this point, we do not have a planet killer type bolide asteroid. We don't have a defense for that.
No.
And I mean, the whole idea of, I'll blow it up. Well, then you get, if you blow it up, you get hit with a lot of pieces. The only real thing to do is come up with and Stanton Friedman's work would have probably been great for this because he was working on fusion-powered aircraft and engine. Some way of using the mass and the material of the asteroid itself, whatever's coming toward us. First, we got to detect it. Then we have to use somehow to make its own, use some kind of fusion device to use its own mass as the fuel to change its trajectory. Because we're just not, we're not going to be able to push it. We're not going to be able to blow it up. But we need to come up with some kind of way of nudging them away.
Kind of like an Armageddon scenario.
Well, no, with Armageddon, they were going to blow it up into pieces and hope the pieces missed us. I'm saying we've got to develop, and hopefully, if there's some, we know there's some black budget stuff out there. Say you could go up there with this flexible ring type device, and you calculate where this needs to be, or if the asteroid itself, called the plant killer, is in a slow roll, you calculate when you need to fire this thing, and it uses the material of, the rock, the soil, the minerals, or, a lot of these things are made out of ice balls, or ice and iron and all this, so you figure out a way to ignite that, use it as a fuel, You put a device on there that makes this thing become its own propellant. Whether you ionize it, whatever you do, we're going to have a way of getting out there quickly and making these planet killers alter course. Because we're due. We're overdue for a major extinction level event.
Yeah, I agree. Trying to get the community prepared. Like an extinction level event's going to help. But so don't you think with the black budget and the secret government we already have, that we know we have, we don't already have, look at Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program. Don't you think there's something like that already in place to take out asteroids or any extinction level event?
I think we lost the drive. I think, because, okay, they ridiculed him for that. Oh, Star Wars, Ronnie Reagan, it was the giggle factor was added to it. Because, people don't want to look away from their mass media, their mindless entertainment, their bread and circuses. And it's like David Adair was saying, one Carrington level event. Was that the Carrington? Yeah, the Carrington event. Anyhow, one major electromagnetic storm hitting us at the wrong time in the wrong place.
Right.
Is going to set us back to the Stone Age. Those oil-filled transformers are going to start blowing. You're going to lose power. Well, the fire departments will come. No, the fire department, there's not going to be power to pump the water.
Nope.
You talk about spam hitting the fan, but nobody takes that kind of crap seriously because, it's not as much fun as watching, Kim Kardashian's butt or some other mindless drivel pop culture crap. And, it's kind of like maybe we've evolved to the point where as a species we are a dead end now. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, Michael, go ahead, Corey.
What I was going to say, what I find really interesting is, and the point has easily been made a couple of times as we're talking here, is that people crave and crave and crave that the government gives them disclosure, that they give them something that says, hey, the aliens are here. But then the moment they do, where it be maybe soft disclosure, nonetheless, still some disclosure, then they look at it and say, oh, that's crap, and they laugh at it, and they say, oh, try again. What? Really? Isn't this what you just asked for? Kind of weird.
Yeah, you'll go back to that old adage, how do you know a politician's lying? His lips are moving.
His lips are moving, yep.
I wrote an article, I don't know if it's still up on, I think most of my stuff is hidden or gone now, but it was, do we really need government disclosure? I mean, for the most part, those of us that believe or have seen don't need disclosure.
No.
And the ones that haven't aren't really going to believe no matter what until, the Vogon destructor fleet is in orbit blowing up the planet in 5 minutes. It's not, I just don't think government disclosure is relevant.
And that production company brought it up again today, that they were impressed with the fact that with FMP, we don't really care about the pictures, the EVPs, and the whatnot. We already know it's here. We don't, and like you said, we don't need disclosure because we know there's aliens in the woods. We know the spirits are in the closet. We know Bigfoot's on the mountain. So why do we need evidence? It's good to have. Don't get me wrong. Technology is great to have to go, yep, look, the EMF spiked. But we don't need it to validate the paranormal. We need to validate it in that client's home, for example. But again, we're not after that award-winning picture. Who cares? Ooh, it's a spirit. I've seen 11 billion of them. Who cares? And but Michael, I wanted to hear where are we going to be in December?
Given the pace that the disclosure has taken just since December, where basically it began, in earnest, it's fascinating to me to think where we're going to be in less than a year in December again, Let's just pick December 16th because that's when the New York Times article came out, 2017. So let's just think just before Christmas coming up this year, what is going to happen and what is it going to look like when the mainstream media now is talking about not only extraterrestrial unidentified craft, but potentially the pilots and the beings that are piloting those craft. That will be fascinating. Matter of fact, as both of you know, I used to be vice president of Puget Sound Christian College and attended a Pentecostal church for the last 20-some years or so. The whole idea that literally the churches, the local community pastors, are so important in any given community that there's going to be a huge paradigm shift that's going to have to be made in their own minds when these kinds of disclosures happen. It's going to be very fast, and just as you all know that the Catholic Church is kind of positioning themselves to be the religion of the future when the Pope says that he would actually baptize aliens if they came down to this planet, and the fact that they have the largest telescope on the planet themselves, and operating that search for the heavens for different. Matter of fact, do you know what their telescope is called? The name of their telescope?
Lucifer.
I love that name.
Yeah. The light bearer.
Great. But it just goes to show you how serious someone has been in religion to kind of go that way and to put the money and time and effort. So I believe that in December, as it comes down the pike here, what a perfect time of the year to disclose, the whole idea that there have been extraterrestrial visitors on the planet. There are still extraterrestrial visitors coming to the planet, and we need to raise our consciousness to deal with that. That's going to be something that I'm looking forward to. I don't know if it's going to happen by then, but I could see, given the pace that they've gotten or given so far, that could be maybe some kind of a deadline they're shooting for. I don't know.
Yeah, because it seems like it went from zero to the brakes being on to we're slowly rolling downhill. And I don't see, there's a tipping point. There's going to be a point where you can't stop it. Disclosure is going to be here whether they want it to be or not. Something is forcing the powers that be, something is forcing their hands. And
yes.
the way it's happening and sort of the frenetic pace suggests to me that it's not going to be like Yvonne was saying, so do we talk about disclosure for the next 10 years? No, I don't think we've got 2 years.
Right.
No, I don't even think we've got a year. You still there, Markham?
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a question. So you're talking about the preachers having a paradigm shift. Is that going to be a good or a bad thing? Because, most of the fundamentalists, everything's a demon. Is that going to change, or are they still going to convince everybody aliens are demons?
No, there's going to be sects it's going to be certain. You are going to have the Bible thumping apocalyptic ones that are going to hold themselves up in their churches and burn themselves rather than be taken over by the demonic forces and all. That's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, but people are people. You're going to have the you're going to have the ones that are accepting of it, and the ones that are basically, the saucers landed, great. My ass still has to be at work at 6 p.m. tonight. See ya.
Yeah.
Call me at the world ends.
Yeah. But again, I think the churches as a social community in our local communities is so important to the fabric of our society that the paradigm shift has got to be made and will be made. I can't imagine that the local pastors at the Baptist church are going to close up shop and say, sorry, it's over. I'm not going to, I'm not going to help the community anymore, because that's what the churches do. Obviously, they have a dogma, but also they have a real service to the community, and I believe that they, among other folks, will be the fabric that holds things together in the future. I think that's very important. Matter of fact, I've come up with an idea that I've been working on ever since these disclosures things into last December, called the Disclosure Commission on Truth and Reconciliation, where we actually have local pastors, law enforcement, pillars of the community, politicians even, who actually come together at various gatherings and hear the evidence of extraterrestrial intervention and people's stories of UFO sightings and those kinds of things. Because the idea being, if we can actually give people a venue that they can tell their story to the local authorities and people that they respect, it's doing a two-edge kind of educational program where it's educating the people that need to know about this, the local pastors, the local law enforcement, the local politicians, and it is also given the people who have experiences out there a way to vent their anxiety and their potential anger and blowback here once they find out that this has been something that's been kept from them for years and generations.
Agreed. And moving along, Michael, do you have another question?
Well, it'd be interesting to think about. And I always like to think ahead on something like this, is what is my life going to be like post-disclosure? I've always wondered, like Markham was mentioning, I still am going to get up and go to work, and I'm going to, help folks in my profession. I'm going to do my job. But the paradigm shift is going to be something that we're all going to have to live with on a day-by-day basis. And things that we might think are so important right now regarding our daily lives might change quite a bit once that disclosure happens, and potentially even interaction. We'll be listening and watching the news potentially in the future, and hearing about some galactic federation meeting that happened, and earthly representatives have now sat down with other races, and they are working out some galactic problem that we're all facing. Those kinds of paradigm shifts are going to be interesting, even for ufology folks like ourselves or paranormal people that know about these things. It's going to be a paradigm shift for us.
Yes and no. I mean, can't you honestly almost say that we've already shifted? Some of us have. Because when you talk about post-disclosure, what do I personally have to do? My kids already know, Daddy talks about aliens all the time. They're already aware of the potential of aliens. I have to do post-disclosure is, all the ones that were scoffing and laughing in the community about, the alien guy and the paranormal guy and yada, yada, yada. He was right. Oh, my God. And that's where you have to calm the community down. As far as FMP goes, we're already kind of placed ourselves in that position where we're ready for it. It's not going to be, are there UFOs? Because we know there are. But, and we've talked about this before, but now it's going to be, okay, so that craft was triangular, so that is going to be a reptilian race. And their agenda is blank. And, and then, of course, you have to get ready for the influx of duckies that are going to come out because now they can. That's when we do have to brace ourselves. And we're getting ready for that as well. We need a bigger team. So what we're going to do with a bigger team as an emergency response aspect is actually have, 3 to 4 people on standby each week so that we have a quick response. Because we have team members that work 9 to 5. They can't always be available. If I have a call right now, do I have a team ready to go? Right now, I happen to have a whole room full. But, tomorrow, it's going to be different because, well, no, tomorrow will be the same. I still have a room full. But Monday, Corey has to go to work, and other people have jobs. So what we need to do to brace for the influx is actually recruit new members, train them, and then we'll actually have a roster that we can go by to, this team is on standby this week or tomorrow, whatever, however we work it. And that's how you prepare for the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
From our standpoint.
And that's exactly what we're doing tonight. This is what S4 is all about. This is what, Forest Moon Paranormal is all about on the internet, on YouTube, and Facebook, reaching out and telling the story where people can access the story and get information, because we're well beyond the time where we need to whisper amongst ourselves about these issues and problems. We need to, lift our voices up and attract people that know these things are true, but really have not been able to talk about them in the past. And that's exactly what you guys are all about.
Mm-hmm. So, Corey, where are we going to be in December?
That's a good question. There's 2 realms of thought, at least in my mind. Firstly, is that at the rate things are going, the way things have been coming out from the government and everything else, it's likely. First option is that we're going to have some sort of full disclosure by then. Second option is that they're going to look at this thing the way they have in the past and go, oh crap, well, we really shouldn't have done that, and it's just going to stop. And by the time we get to December, it will be just a whisper amongst everyone else that they actually started to do that, and it didn't go anywhere.
And then we will be talking about disclosure for the next 10 years.
Probably, yeah. So yeah, literally at this point, I'm looking at it. It's a 50-50 two-sided coin that it could go really either direction at this point. So it's going to be kind of a hide and wait, see what happens kind of thing. Does it continue on in the same steamroller fashion that it's been kind of warming up and rolling forward, or is it going to just have the brakes put on and everything is going to just come to a halt? And right now, I couldn't tell you either way because I've seen both things happen in different realms, so who knows?
Okay, so taking you into Michael's second question, disclosure happens tomorrow. Where do you see yourself personally in the paradigm shift? Corey?
Well, you're asking me that? Oh, I thought you were asking Michael that. So
no, Michael already answered.
So say that again, because I only caught part of that.
Okay, disclosure happens tomorrow. Where do you see yourself reacting in the paradigm shift in your day-to-day life? Because you're FMP, so you already know how FMP is going to react. But how are you going to personally react?
Oh, goodness. We're talking full disclosure, or are we talking all of a sudden they're here and we're staring at aliens face-to-face or across the TV screen? What are we talking here?
Full disclosure. All right, go ahead, Michael.
Well, I would say that here's the likely scenario. At one point, the idea of a United Nations of galactic proportions might be something that we start hearing about. We have earthly representatives that are ambassadors to some kind of an organization that runs this part of the universe or whatever. Just that idea would be a very interesting paradigm shift, not only for us who are involved in the paranormal, but folks who have no clue, but all of a sudden are forced to realize that, wow, this could affect the way I do my job. This could affect the church that I attend, or how I deal with my own spouse or relatives, those kinds of issues.
For me, I'm looking at things as, on the church aspect, I don't go to church, so that doesn't bother me in the slightest. As for my day-to-day life, unless you've got aliens that are actually taking over and controlling stuff, it's not going to affect me going to work and doing the things that I do for that matter. I think at that point it's just start making sure that you're prepared for whichever direction it could go. I mean, is it going to be one of those things where you're going to have ETs that are going to be fairly decent and kind, and it's not going to be a real big issue? It's going to be that idea of single government of maybe not only the planet, but maybe from an ET side coming in, or what are we going to be looking at here? Am I going to have to be prepared for something that's going to be something that's just almost like a takeover? Aliens decide they want to come in and just wipe out anybody who's in the way of something that they want. So I'm thinking that the paradigm shift in my mind is going to be being prepared as best as possible for whichever way that may go.
And we already did that show. That was the survival and alien invasion show. Get the guns loaded. Markham, are you still with us?
Yeah, I imagine I'm going to be busier than a one-armed paper hanger, because there's going to be panic. I live in the Bible Belt, and there's some pretty parochial F-tards, 100 yards from where I'm standing right now, that are going to lose their crap. And I imagine this, I think all of the people that are in the medical professions like me, blood bankers like me, are going to have our hands full. Because you're going to have the attempted suicides, you're going to have the people that go crazy and go speeding down the roads to get away. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be total chaos, but I think there's going to be enough of that kind of reaction in certain areas.
Well, ideally you'll be moved
I'm going to be here, and I mean, it don't matter if it's a Monday, whenever it happens, whatever day of the week it is, I'm sure I'll be called in. I'll be right where I'm at right now. That's what what it means. What's disclosure mean for me? Overtime. Time and a half. Might not be anything left to spend it on, but new guitar. That's what it means to me.
I think we are all going to be overtime and double time when something like disclosure happens, because we have always been those kinds of personalities that want to help people understand the truth. And we've kind of been little beacons, I would imagine, in our own community. And people are going to be rushing towards us with fear, with questions, with maybe elation in some cases, that are going to need to be helped, and I think all of us will be, like you said, really busy in dealing with people on a social basis and help them get through the paradigm shift that's coming. Matter of fact, our local MUFON state director, Maureen Morgan here in Washington State, has told herself that she needs to gather together a go bag, something that she can use to get out there in the community with information, flyers, documentation, to coordinate efforts when something big hits the fan. Because obviously there's not going to be very many people out there that will be prepared to step in to the fray when something happens.
Yeah, and when it comes to the go bag, if you're talking survival, we already train on go bags and disaster response. Well, if you talk, mass panic, that would be a disaster on that proportion. Yeah. Again, we're already on top of that part with training and actually training the community. We'll be actually doing disaster prep training in the community, as well as wilderness survival, active shooter drills, terrorist response, things of that nature, at the farmers market in upriver. So we're already gearing the community, not towards alien invasion, not towards disclosure, but towards disaster preparation in general, which it's all the same. Disasters are disasters, whether they are alien invasion or mass panic or volcano eruption. The response is always going to be the same.
Yes. Yeah, the actual emergency potentially will change and morph, but obviously the need will be there on a massive basis for a lot of folks that are not prepared. And of course, the people that are will be taxed to the max. And that's why the training that you folks do at Forest Moon Paranormal is so essential, because you guys are actually coming up with a template of what's going to be duplicated in the future with other organizations and response professionals as things like this come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. And what's scary is that there aren't other teams that aren't thinking the way UFOI team and FMP and Four Corners Paranormal and other organizations that work with us. It's a very small minority in the paranormal field, and the other ones are going to drop off because they're going to get scared. They talk big, and they go to clients' houses, and a lot of them, the first time they see a spirit or see something paranormal, they scream and run out. That's just a sad reality. And then the client, has to find someone else to help them. So, we need to get other teams that have the same mindset and, get them on board in a network. I mean, we've attempted that, and it doesn't work because other teams they just aren't interested, or until, you know, that shift happens.
Yes,
and will they be ready?
Exactly. Well, like I said, I think you guys, FMP will be a template that will be reproducible on a short-term basis very quickly. So the things that you are doing now with the press releases, you know, the training programs that you've got in place are something that will are pioneering efforts now that will be standard procedure in the future.
You know, that kind of makes me think, though, if we have, okay, here's the potential, okay, right now, for the most part, ghosts, the things we deal with in the spiritual realm are doubted by a lot of people. Disclosure comes. Okay, UFOs and aliens are real. Is that going to open the floodgates of perception for people to start accepting the other paranormal stuff? You know, this was all, you know, fairy tale and nonsense to a lot of people. Now, all of a sudden, here's a facet of the nonsense that isn't nonsense. So are we going to be busier as a paranormal team because now belief is going to power the negative entities, and you're going to start seeing an uptick in attacks or, you know, in bad experiences because, you know, belief is food for these things.
And that's a very good point. And that could go one way or the other.
And I think indeed what will happen when the actual disclosure happens as far as ufology goes, I think the bleed over will be pretty instant to the idea that consciousness is connected with everything. So the idea of if aliens exist, do they come from another dimension? If they come from another dimension, what are other dimensions? And all of those questions will be asked and hopefully answered. And then, of course, everything ends up being tied together, I believe. Good and bad, you know, duality of all of that stuff. So I think you're right, Markham, is that there will be a major rush in all of these areas of paranormal that all of a sudden will be tied together very quickly.
And all those theoretical physicists that wasted their careers trying to prove string theory will go, see, we told you.
Multiverses and everything.
Totally agree. Well, guys, we're getting close to wrapping up. Remind the listeners where they can find UFO I-Team, Michael.
Okay, UFOiteam.com is the website, and of course you can always join us every Wednesday night on Facebook Live at 6 o'clock till about 8 o'clock. We have live streaming our weekly meeting on Facebook, so we're out there trying to get the word out.
Sounds great. And next week is our Fourth Moon Paranormal Team Show. And that's always a big hit. So I look forward to that one. And yeah, we're getting a week away from Markham's birthday. And everybody's coming. All right, Corey, go ahead and start wrapping us up.
Okay, I can do that. Let's see here. Get things taken care of here. I would like to thank our panel tonight, Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we have our monthly team show. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And now on KSVU 90.1. I would like to thank all of our listeners because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.